Hello, good morning. Welcome to Friday morning's OTB AM. Kieran Donaghy with you here all morning. We've got a great show lined up for you. There's no Ger, there's no Adrian. Owen Sheen's gone all the way to Japan, but we do have in studio Kevin Kilbane and Michael Quinlivan. Morning, lads.
How are we keeping?
We're good. Take it easy on me now this morning. Kev, good week for Irish football?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lads coming in this morning, all the lads are raving about his under-21 side.
Yeah.
And, you know, he certainly grabbed the headlines. Troy Pochettino speaking about him in his press conference yesterday as well. But, of course, we're looking at the senior side and see what they've done in those two games. Certainly the Switzerland game, the last 15 minutes, you're seeing the supporters leaving the ground in certainly a better frame of mind than we've seen them in recent times. And I think the new lads stepping into that Bulgaria game. There's my phone going there.
Oh,
that's weak, isn't it?
Jesus,
that's weak from me.
That's rookie stuff.
So yeah, I was pleased enough, certainly with Tuesday night against Bulgaria, because it was up to several of the new players to come in and stake a claim for next month's games, and I think certainly two or three of them did that anyway. So it was great to see.
Who impressed you the most against Bulgaria?
Well, the one thing I've constantly harped on about and banged on about, it's certainly, and you'd watch it yourselves and you see the way they've been playing. We play a certain way where I don't think our midfielders put any demands on fullbacks in possession, centre halves in possession. They never get on the ball. We never take control of the game. Now, I'm not saying we're going to take control of a game and have over 60% possession again, but there's got to come times in games where they've got to be brave and take it, and we haven't been doing it. And Josh Cullen and Alan Brown, I mean, I've known Alan since he was 15 or 16 when I was coaching over at Hull and I had him over. So he's one that I've looked at, certainly playing for Preston North End's been something which has been great as well. So those two in particular impressed me. I just think it was a willingness to take the ball. I don't think they were great, but I just think there was a willingness to take the ball, and those two, certainly Alan with his goal as well, but Josh Cullen certainly in taking the ball, certainly put it in mixed mind. Look, I've got players here who are brave enough maybe to step up when to be counted, and maybe James Collins up front as well. I think he played well. Certainly getting his goal was great for him coming off the bench. And young Jack Byrne, I played League of Ireland football, but I've watched him play a lot this season, and seeing him play the way that he did coming onto the pitch of the night, he played exactly the same way. He put demands on others, and you could see his body language. Yeah,
that's what I was most blown away by him. Was like literally, the minute he came on, he was like, "Give me the ball." I was like, "Jeez, this fella's on for it."
You know yourselves, they put demands on all the lads to give him the ball.
Yeah.
So many of our lads, as I was saying before, when I've watched the international side, and maybe it's because it's maybe that little bit of fear that's within them. Maybe it's because that we know that maybe at times that we're going to be under pressure in long spells. But as I was saying earlier on, there's got to come a time in games where you have to take it. And I think Jack Byrne just coming on, body language, demanding from others, almost just giving it him in tight areas. And I was impressed with the cameo. What was it, 10 or 15 minutes that he came on for? But it was great.
Myler was saying his piece during the week with Joe, which was unbelievable. But he was saying that his job was to get the ball, and if Wes was on the pitch, he was going to look for him all the time. And it was very similar to that, the way Jack Byrne was kind of was pulling strings and looking for it. And we need somebody like that. Yeah,
well, that's exactly the case. He's definitely that type of player. And I am not saying that. Mick spoke afterwards about how it might have been a bit different in the Switzerland game, which is probably true. And I think maybe he's got to learn the other side of the game, that when we don't have it, how's he going to filter back into position? How's he going to influence the game without necessarily going pressing all over the pitch? And that's maybe something he will learn as well. But I think if we're chasing a game, and he showed in that last 15 minutes that if we do need a goal, we need something, he can come on and play that Wes role. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, quite weak in the build-up to a replay of the biggest game of all time. It certainly felt like a bigger build-up to the first game. This has been there's a lot going on. There's the ladies' finals on the day after. There was the Camogie finals at the weekend. There was all this stuff with Ireland. There's the rugby.
Yeah, it also seems like both teams, I think you have press nights and that before the first one, so there's a lot of build-up, whereas when it goes to a replay, it's a bit more...
They get away with that.
They get away with just putting the heads down and nobody really talking about it. But yeah, look, it's a huge weekend for football, with the men's final on the Saturday and the ladies on the Sunday. Tipper obviously in the ladies in the intermediate final as well, so hopefully they might be able to bring back another intermediate title.
Well, what's your feelings on it?
On the ladies or the men's?
Both.
I think the ladies will do it. I think they've been going very, very well throughout the year.
Okay.
It's going to be a tight game, but I think they might do it.
Okay.
They've been there, they have the experience. So
Kerry Dublin?
Kerry Dublin, there won't be more than a kick of the ball in it.
Really, that tight
yeah, again? I think so.
There's a kind of belief around there that it's going to be like the Kerry missed their chance and that Dublin are going to, Peter Quinlivan in the Indo this morning saying that they're going to, no, he picked them.
I don't buy.
Cover it with Sky. He said they're going to win by 11 or 12 points the first day. So
I smile on your face when it came back out again.
I slagged them after it. Yeah, I slagged them after it.
I don't buy the underdog thing with Kerry. I think it's a very different. When people talk about that underdog tag, it normally tends to be surrounded around a provincial final, where a team who's not used to getting to a provincial final, like, you know, let's say Sligo in Connacht, they went and played Mayo. You know, Tip in 2002, I think 2002 or 2001 played Cork, drew with them in Semple Stadium, and then Cork blew them out of it the second day. Kerry are never underdogs, like. So I just don't think it applies. I don't buy into it. I think
we're in for another good one. So
I think so. Yeah. I just don't. I don't see how, like, everything points towards another tight game.
Okay.
There's never too much between.
The two of you now, maybe something for you later as well. They've both obviously faced up now, and Kerry going into the game unbelievable underdogs. Now all of a sudden the odds have probably shortened up a little bit between the two sides. Do you think just by Kerry facing them up, that young team that they've got, they can actually say now, yeah, we can actually go out and be a bit braver?
It's a good point. I think they would have felt in the build-up to the game, Kev, that, you know, we can compete with this Dublin team. They beat them in the league. They beat them in the league final in Croke Park in 17, and I felt like that there would be that inner belief, but it's that Dublin juggernaut that has 4 in a row. It's going for 5 in a row. And I think coming away from Croke Park the last day, they'll realise Kerry themselves what they left after them on the scoreboard, and I think they'll say, we just need to come up and perform again, you know, and that's what they need to do. It was all about Kerry's performance, and people say Dublin underperformed, but Kerry won a lot of the battles. An All-Ireland final comes down to 15 battles. Who's going to win more? And what Dublin showed later on is that they were just able to manufacture a result and manufacture a draw out of it, and possibly could have won it. So I think Kerry will also feel lucky, because if you look at the last 7 or 8 minutes, Dublin had the chances to win it. They were that much on Hawkeye from winning the All-Ireland, so it's an opportunity back for them again. What's coming up, lads? What we have on this morning, we're going to do the paper review. We've the sports pages coming up. We've Ty Kennelly, Sydney Swans and Kerry Legend coming on at 8 o'clock to talk Dublin versus Kerry. Myself and Michael will push on with that as well. We've a small bit in the tactics board. We've the Premier League. Obviously we'll go through that with Kev. Alan Quinlan's in at 8:50. And then Irish Rugby at 9:15. So an interesting show. We'll get into the papers. We'll start with the Star. He's a brolly good fellow. Good man, David. David Goff says there's no ill feeling between himself and controversial pundit Joe Brolly. The Derry All-Ireland winner Brolly slammed referee's Goff decision in the draw in Sam Maguire final 7 days or 12 days ago, accusing the Meath official of being influenced by Kerry propaganda. He obviously took that back because it was way off. You know, David Goff was spot on.
What do you think about that?
I hated the Kerry propaganda thing. It really pissed me off. I won't lie. It was Eamon Fitzmaurice was asked a question, who was kind of burnt maybe in a big game by a mistake that David made, and he was asked and he gave his answer, and all of a sudden it was like all of us Kerry people were ringing around, and this is the narrative we'll put out, which obviously wasn't the case. But
for sure,
it's more of a WhatsApp group. It's
not a. I'm going to put up my phone here. We're going to go through my WhatsApp groups. Live on OTB AM. If you can find a Kerry propaganda group on my WhatsApp groups,
can I have a look for your phone then?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do it. But yeah, no, it's. Yeah, I don't think it was something. And fair play for David for being big enough to not let that affect him, because it was a big comment by Joe in the heat of the moment, and I don't believe it has anything to do with. I don't think it has anything to do with Joe actually not being on the next day. I think there's more stuff behind that. Hard to stomach. There's also a story about Lukaku here that he's slamming United's physio group and for not spotting that he had a digestive problem, which was. He was struggling to get his weight down, but the Italians spotted it straight away in his medical, so he's now on a new diet. So we should see a very trim Romelu Lukaku. That's the Star. What have we got for you, Michael?
On the back of the Independent today, there's a very interesting story about Wexford and their fight to keep Davy Fitzgerald. I'm just going to read out a few lines of this. It's to do with Galway's interest in taking Davy up there. Wexford chairman Derek Kent told the Irish Independent last night his dealings with Fitzgerald and their desire to keep his reign, but admitted that the 6-hour round trip from his Clare base is a significant stumbling block. When we got to the beaten in the All-Ireland semi-final, I told Davy, I'll see you in 6 weeks, you take a breather. The 6 weeks are up. Davy's in America currently before his wedding next month, is it? I think. You're home at the weekend and we'll have a chat. Davy's love for Wexford is unbelievable. Davy wants to come back and manage Wexford, but there's loads of stuff to look at. His health, his welfare, driving up and down, and the strain it takes on him personally, which is quite interesting from a Galway perspective. I think it's a bit of a bolt from the blue there. I think they would have maybe had a bit of a succession plan with someone within the county. It tends to be the way in hurling that it stays within the county, certainly in the stronger counties. But Davy to Galway would be a
big story.
Big story, yeah. Especially, I think I think this year he finally got a bit of credence for what he did down in Wexford.
Yeah, he's done a great job. He's done a great job in most places he's done.
Yeah, you forget where they came from and the low base that they were at, and they were a whisker away from an All-Ireland final.
Yeah,
and would have been going into that All-Ireland final playing a team that they'd already beaten.
Yeah,
in a championship, they won a first Leinster title. So, he's done an unbelievable job there. But I think the significant stumbling block for him is the driving.
I drove up there at work 2 weeks ago from Tralee to Wexford. It is a long, hard drive.
Yeah, it is.
It's cross country for Davy if you're coming from Clare.
Yeah.
To Wexford, it's cross country. Certainly Galway up the road would be far handier. It's motorway now all the way, so it's a quick spin up there.
And the rest of the back of the Irish Independent, Jim Gavin's saying that there's no split in the Dublin camp, and it's something I think that the back of the Herald have also run with. There's been musings from outside the county that Connolly coming back in and Brogan being left out, or outside the camp, I should say, that it's starting to have a strain on it. I don't know. I think it's a talking point that people might put out there because they don't have much else to talk about. But
yeah, but it's a kind of legit thing to talk about. Though there is, I was talking to Phil outside earlier on, and if you were training as hard as the guys that were dropped off to 26, we'll say, and Brogan's obviously the big name because sentiment-wise, you kind of say he deserves to be in there. He's going for 5 in a row. I know he wasn't on the 26 last year. This is probably his last season. Could you do worse than bringing on Bernard Brogan with 10 minutes to go? I don't think so. I think he'd lift the stadium, he'd lift the Dublin crowd, and if he got one ball, he'd cause a bit of panic. So, when you're putting in the effort that these guys are, and Michael, it's full on, and you have a guy who's getting on a plane 5 or 6 weeks ago who decided not to play for the last 2 years, and all of a sudden he's in and he's on, and I have a feeling he'll start tomorrow. So, you could be a bit peeved about that if you were down the pecking order.
I could well imagine that.
When you're not pro, I'd say, Kev, you could be peeved if you were a professional.
Yeah.
If some fella came in and that was the situation.
We've all been part of dressing rooms. You know how it works at times, and I can imagine Connolly stepping in the way that he did only a few weeks before major games. I can imagine what the feeling was like. You get on with it. You have to get on with it because you've got to protect yourself in many respects. But there'd be that little bit in the back of your mind thinking, it's not right.
Is that the PR machine putting it to bed? For talking about propaganda.
I think, well, from what Jim Gavin has said on Dubs TV,
he has to say that.
Yeah, he does.
There's a rift, obviously.
A lot of the time, the manager won't even know what's going on within the panel, I would say.
Yeah, he could have a feeling.
That sort of a rift, you can have a feeling, but that sort of a rift happens with maybe one or two groups of players rather than you getting to the manager.
Yeah, the ultimate goal. Why I think they should start him is it kind of kills all of that really. If they start Connolly and he kicks 3 points and they win the All-Ireland, Jim was right all along and it was the right decision. You might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb at the stage of the game. What have we got, Kerry?
I got the Irish Times here. It's a bit one for you here in Kerry as well, about Donny Buckley. Buckley's backstop difficult for Dublin to negotiate, and basically saying about the experience that he's brought in. Kerry coach brings a wealth of experience, innovation to the county's challenge. What difference do the backroom team make? Because I think the backroom teams are getting bigger and bigger every season, aren't they? Certainly with the GAA, you're seeing so many coaches going in there.
I think
coaches.
We made a point on Shacklock a few weeks ago that it's not a manager anymore. It is a backroom team, and one guy. It's gone to such a level now that one guy can't cover all the bases. So you need a guy like. And Donny's probably gets a lot of the credit, but Tommy Griffin would have been with Peter Keane as looking after the defensive side, and Tommy was a very shrewd centre-back, full-back midfielder, but he always had a defensive eye to his game, and he would always been, if he was midfield, he'd always be back helping the boys. He'd know when to double team, he'd know when a fella could be beaten. But Donaghy with Mayo got them to a level of tackling.
I was at the game. It was that was certainly the best I'd seen Kerry in a number of years. It was incredible how they were in that match.
I think he had him in good shape.
Yeah.
You know, more than just kind of tackling and turning guys over. I think he had him man to man, and if there was an extra guy back, he was sniffing around for help. They were looking for work, I felt, Kerry the last day, which was a big thing. And you know, Peter Keane would have, you know, when he turns and looks to somebody, and he could get Donaghy Buckley in, and it was a big opportunity to go get one. Michael, he did a great job with Mayo. He was a big reason that Mayo were competing, because let's face it, Mayo were always were maybe short that one top class forward to get him over the line, but defensively they always put it up to everybody.
Yeah, they were. I was very impressed with Kerry, you know, bar maybe McCaffrey's goal, which kind of comes from a kick out where Kerry had pressed up.
Yeah.
Dublin very rarely got through the middle of him.
Yeah.
Very rarely. And I mean, even when they did, it was 2 and 3 bodies around the ball.
Yeah.
They were being pushed really wide and then drifting back across over the field. And that takes a lot of concentration, because a lot of the time it's not very tight, as in you tuck in the 10 yards off the left hand side, similar to enough if you see a back four move across in soccer, and then they shift over and back without ever opening up that middle. And it was probably the one time since Mayo used to do it to Dublin that I've seen it done as well.
Yeah, no, he'll have to get a bit of credit for it, because they've done a. If you look at where they were early on in the year when Cork ran through them, now we've seen Cork run through a few teams since, but Cork ran through them in the Munster final, you know, and there was every pundit out there, and even ourselves leaving the stadium, were kind of going, Jesus, Kerry are open here, like. But they did a good job the last day of tightening that up, which would have been a big emphasis for them. The Sun tries just to buy Poch, lay off Parrott. So Tottenham boss Mauricio Pochettino fears that there's too much pressure on Troy Parrott. I talked to you about this outside, Kev.
Yeah.
Robbie was 17 when he came in.
Yeah.
What's changed that 17-year-olds are now too young?
The one difference is that Robbie had been playing first team football. Troy Parrott still hasn't played a senior game at any level. So that's the one thing you're looking at. Is he ready to step up? I'd probably say no right now, because he hasn't played for Poch. I'd love to see it. Last season he probably would have got a couple of cup games last year, and he was injured around January time, I think it was. I think they had Tranmere in the cup and he missed out through injury. So he's missed that valuable time, I think, where we could actually judge him a little bit better now, certainly at senior level. But you only need to look at the goals, the quality on his goals of the night. Certainly that second one late on, it was an incredible finish from such a young player. Age is no limits, no barrier in my mind. I do think that, and if he gets any sort of game time with Spurs this next month, I think Mick could be under pressure to call them into the senior side.
They're a Champions League team as well. Do you know what I mean? If he was down playing with a team at the bottom, I'm sure he would have played already. But John Giles was talking about it last night. We have a video here to have a look at it.
I wouldn't worry about his age, Nathan. People saying, well, he's only 17.
Would you worry about the fact he's never played a game of senior football?
No.
You wouldn't like to see him 20 minutes for Spurs in the League Cup?
Well, what does it prove, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Like what I find with players of the real calibre, the age doesn't mean anything. Of course they can learn with experience, but if they have it, if they really have it and they have it physically, they can do it at 17. We've seen players do it at 17. You know, I know Pelly and these lads are exceptional in what they did, but there's players who have it.
No,
he does have it.
Oh, he's got it. He's got a bit of magic about him, doesn't he?
Physically, if you'd seen him a year ago, he's probably unrecognisable to the physical condition he's in now.
Yeah.
He's grown physically, which of course is at the age where he will be developing. But you can see lads bouncing off him. However they've shaped him there at Spurs, he's
probably
able for it.
Yeah, and if you look at Son and Harry Kane, like they're all like, Son was a revelation last year, wasn't he? He was he carried the can when Kane was injured. So if you're playing behind 2 or 3 of those fellas, it's hard to get game time, obviously. If you're going to look, but
especially with Kane, like if Kane's fit, he plays. He's that sort of player. He doesn't like being left out. He wants to score 30 goals a season. So that's, I think the getting in there is the one thing.
Exactly.
Like he got injured towards the end of last season, and now Llorente is gone. I think if he can get a run of 3 or 4 games,
it's quite telling that he didn't go and sign anyone. And I know Tottenham have been a club that haven't necessarily gone out and splashed, and and tried to maybe get in people that's going to be the second choice strikers. Llorente was a perfect one for them, but it looks to me by that decision not to go and get anyone, that he is your next best now. So hopefully, I think we're all hopeful anyway, because we don't have anyone at that level at all.
No, and he'd be a huge lift, I think.
Yeah,
you know, because the fans would really get behind a kid like that out there. The Examiner have an interesting story inside by John Fogarty. Gavin set to recall Brogan to matchday squad. So Bernard Brogan is set to be included in Dublin's matchday squad for tomorrow's All-Ireland final replay. The Irish Examiner understands. So I think that's a good move. I think that's a good move by Jim. I just think Paddy Small is good, he's young, he's energetic, he can definitely score, he's going to be a great player. But I just think, you know, he didn't make great decisions late on when the game was in the melting pot the last day, and I just don't see Bernard making those.
Yeah, there was a couple dropped into the keeper.
The shot out in the left wing, I thought the shot that actually led to the Kerry goal was okay. He just slided a bit.
Yeah, sometimes.
And that's an easier goal to kick into. If you put it up in the air, the wind often carries it over that bar. But the one way out in the left wing, Paul Ganey again, which he did late on, full length diving block. That was a really hard kick for a left-legged player from that side. If it was a right-sided guy coming in his right side, you could look at it. But interesting that he's going to recall. That was a big call.
It's a huge lift for the Dublin fans. I mean, even if you put him on for 5 minutes, you saw the roar that Tommy got coming on from the Kerry fans. Like, you can imagine the bedlam it would be for Brogan coming on, and that lifts everyone. You forget that sometimes. Do you know?
It feeds to the players.
It does, yeah. You know, you grow 10 feet tall because you see this lad coming on who has 7 All-Ireland medals, and you
can trust him.
Yeah, you
and
can.
He's a scorer, and. You know when you're a scorer, you just have to get the ball close to goal, you're going to work a shot. That's what he'll do.
Their accuracy of their inside forward line actually wasn't unreal.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
We talked about it this morning. Both teams were.
Yeah, the inside forward lines didn't really.
And when they were all the talk.
Yeah, that's the thing. And most of the time, actually, it wasn't taking bad options. It just was pure execution, which is interesting. The back of the Herald, which we mentioned earlier on, we stand together. Jim's hails the solidarity of the champions again, running with the story, probably on a different, with a different twist to it, that the people outside the camp talking about Brogan not being included doesn't really wash inside in their dressing room.
Yeah.
And Brian McGuigan also states that Connolly could be the hero, touching on another point that you made there, that Connolly could be in line for a starting role this weekend.
Right, I've got the London Times here. This is probably going off All Ireland, off Premier League, off international football here, but it's certainly something that I've looked at over the next few years. Middlesbrough to sue the league. Now, the story here, it's Matt Lawton has a story, it's in the London Times. Middlesbrough is set to sue English Football League over its failure to enforce the financial rules over Derby's purchase of their own stadium. This is something where financial fair play comes in the Football League.
Okay.
Sides falling away from the Premier League, not necessarily obviously generating the money that you would do in the Premier League, and how are they generating funds? And this is something that certainly the way that teams have overspent over the years. We saw QPR a few years ago that they were fined heavily for overspending and getting promoted to the Premier League. When they dropped back down, they had to pay a huge fine. So it's something that I think is going to happen. It's going to be more common practice further down the line, because a side's desperate to try to get back up to the promised land with overspending, and it's crazy. It is crazy, really, when you look at what Norwich did last year and how they got back to the Premier League with even in getting promoted. Now they spent virtually nothing. I think it's $1 million over the summer that they spent, and it's about maybe developing their own and also trying to get maybe one or two along the way with you. And I don't know, maybe this one Middlesbrough, this could open a can of worms, I think, really, anyway, if this were to happen anyway.
Yeah. Cluxton, the back of the mirror. Cluxton, a true great. But his teammates, it's the teammates who make him the keeper he is. That's from Supple, who was the sub goalie for a long time, I think, to Stephen. So that's. I
think his teammates are fairly happy when he pings one 70 yards into your chest and you're standing out in the opposition 65.
Yeah, I saw something on Twitter about, I said in my column in the start today that he's our Tom Brady. He's the guy who is, he's the quarterback for Dublin. He sets them up, and he doesn't kick out the ball. He kicks it to space where you're running on, which is like a quarterback does. He doesn't throw the ball to you. He throws it where he thinks you're going to be. And I think that's the way kickouts are going to go. And it's the way, of course, we know it's the way kickouts go. But I think the days of putting it out long, or we'll talk about it later on. I suppose the only time that happens now is when the press is on. Because you can't really put it into space, because that's the idea of the press. There's no space there, so it's nice to see that the ball going out long now, isn't it? It's that bit of excitement that I think we lost from the game for 10 years. We were all sitting there, it was shot kick out, shot kick out, shot kick out. Whereas I felt in the All-Ireland final, there was a lot of ball where it was travelling through the skies of Croke Park, and there's an anticipation. Who's going to catch this? It was old school.
And there was a lot of very good fielding went on as well, which is also, I know I'm a forward, and kicking
but you're a good man to field the ball. You could play out around the middle.
Yeah, kicking a score is great and all, but give me a catcher on the middle of the field all day long.
Yeah, especially as they call it in Australia. If you put a knee up on somebody's shoulder and you get up there.
Yeah.
How long do you think he goes on for? You lads know what it takes, the pressure you put yourself under, you know, the amount of travelling you need to do, the amount of work that you need to do to go into it for at times, very little reward. Now, he's had a lot of rewards, don't get me wrong, he has, but how long do you think he goes on for, given his age?
He's a teacher, which means he's kind of like a pro during the summer, which is ideal when you're an inter-county footballer at this level. It's a fascinating one. Cluxton, when I referred him to him as Tom Brady, I mentioned that he could play on for a long time yet. You know, Tom is 42.
Yeah. Is it possible though to leave him out of the league entirely next year and say, well, I tell you what then?
I don't think he wants that though.
Yeah.
Like he strikes me as someone who never gets phased. Like he's arguably playing better this year than he ever has.
Yeah, but you do have to give, you know, you
have to build for the next when he goes.
You have to build for the next guy when he goes, and also kind of giving him a mental break from it. Plus he's teaching a lot, you know, he's obviously working hard at that time of the year. But like, you know, he's just like the last day he was incredible. He saves the penalty.
He's the reason there.
He touched that one from Paul Murphy. When Paul Murphy struck that, he struck it as clean as you can strike a ball. And for Cluxton to be able to get that close, get a finger on it, knock it onto the crossbar.
I think his body, for that one, his body is going.
Yeah,
and he reaches back and puts a hand. It's an incredible save. Like, I think he keeps going as long as he wants, and that'll be it. If he decides to retire, it won't because he's pushed out. It'll because
it's because he wants to go. Yeah, and he's such a kind of, you know, there's probably a part of him as well. Will, you know, if he's leaning towards stepping out, you know, there's a guy behind him who he's been helping and studying under for a long time, who he'll want to kind of give that opportunity as well to. So, you know, but it'll be up to him. He could stay and there was talks after or before the first game that people were saying like that if Jim goes, he could be the perfect replacement to come straight in for him. Like there's no reason that he couldn't come in and manage them next year. He seems to be that kind of, you know, distant character from the group in a way. Like he's obviously a great captain in the group, and I've had him as a captain with international rules. He is a brilliant captain. But you know, when he steps out of that, you know, if he was said, Jim is gone, we need somebody to take this over, sure he could step into them, fill them boots, no problem.
The back of the Irish Daily Mail today runs with the story on a health scare for Stephen Kenny, who was held back in hospital following the win in Sweden during the week. I think it's hopefully only something minor, I think. Yeah. And at the top, another England centre having a pop at Ireland's World Cup hopes. I think Quinny might quash that later on.
Warren Gatland had a kind of go office there 2 weeks ago, didn't he? I don't think that kind of backfired on him. So yeah, that's great that the English are getting very confident over us.
This is the Guardian here as well. On to cricket. Let's talk about cricket. Oh yeah, sleeping giant Butler wakes from the Ashes, lulled to revive England. I've not been following it, so I don't really know what the stories of this here, Kieran. But I mean, I think in general, England are trying to get themselves back into it. I think
not a cricket man, Kev.
No, it wouldn't be.
The back of the Telegraph runs with another cricket story. We'd ask you about that.
Can we just skip the papers that have cricket as the headlines?
And just up the top, it's an interview with Chris Froome after that horror crash during the year, hoping that he'd get back on a bike before the end of the year.
Racing Post, Kev.
Racing Post, quick one here. Yeah, Ocean Crystal, the brilliant Ocean Crystal, retired after career-ending injury on the gallops. Michael Stout's horse suffered injury, leg injury, and it will be retired. So yeah, that's a blow really there.